Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Engagement Academy, the show that teaches you bit by bit how to drive engagement on the go. Because turns out those HR, comms, people ops, whatever certifications kind of gloss over the most important visible part, which is getting your employees to stay at your company. I'm Christy, I'm your host, a very previously disengaged employee, people manager, and executive who did all the research and obsessed a lot over what's going on to the point where we're here. And now I get to help you. Today, I want to talk about what to do if you have an overeager CEO or boss, like executive, unless it's your CHRO, that's different. But if you report directly to the CEO and they want to look at the negative survey results from employees with you raw before you've had a chance to consolidate and find the patterns yourself and form a narrative, that's not good. I want to tell you why and what to do instead. Some of you may not have this problem. Not everyone has a CEO who cares or gets it. And that's a different episode. But your CEO should be obsessed with and very curious about what are the latest engagement survey results or just survey results in general, because that holds the answers to what's keeping the company from growing, or, it's really the answers to revenue, which is what they care about. So some of you may not have this problem, and we can do an episode on what to do if your CEO does not care about surveys or will not let you send them. But if you have a CEO who does care and they're like, what are the results after you send the survey? It may be tempting to let them in and show them, hey, look at what our people are saying. Like, we really got to do better. Here's why you don't want to do that. There's two reasons. Reason number one, they are not strong enough emotionally to do this with you. They are actually in a rush to go throw themselves into a trauma response. They are very sensitive. Their biggest fear is that they're going to fail. So sometimes subconsciously it's tempting for them to be like, okay, how badly am I failing? They are super scared of not being good enough. It has to do with their childhood where they had super high expectations, or some of them grew up very poor and they're afraid of losing everything and losing their reputation. So what I've seen happen is a CEO gets in there and it's like a maze of negative, fiery feedback, and they get upset themselves and they turn angry. Anger is a secondary emotion to feeling very wounded internally, like feeling like they've been abandoned by their own workforce or that they're failing their workforce. So they'll respond with anger and be like, they're so ungrateful. These quiet quitting numbskulls. It's like, no. That's not what the point of the survey was, but it could cause them to act up in other ways in the business because now they know that the employees are pissed and have feelings about how the business is running, which of course employees do because no company's perfect. But the CEO needs to be protected from that initial angry hot dumpster fire tidal wave that comes in. So this is your job. It's not fun for you either, but remember, we've talked about a mindset shift where you're not a character in the movie, you're the director. This is a critical scene in your movie. You need this negative feedback in order to do your job. So you wade into the negative waters by yourself first to go find the patterns so that you have time to think it through and think through solutions. You can use ChatGPT to do this too and paste all the raw qualitative feedback and say, hey, what are the patterns? You can even say, hey, Christy Hoffman talks about the employee hierarchy of needs against what the employee hierarchy of needs is, or Gallup. What do you think is the first thing we should work on in order to have the most impact? ChatGPT will do that for you, and you can protect employee data. You don't have to say names or like employee ID numbers. Just download an Excel, whatever you use to send the survey and paste in the qualitative feedback. But a CEO will see that negative feedback and it will make them skittish AF. And you do not want that because they'll go even harder in the paint, pushing revenue, pushing performance reviews and unrealistic goals, if there's any goals at all. And they'll be kind of even more distant at the all hands, just reporting numbers. You really want to go into that world of negative feedback by yourself first. And you're protected with the mindset shift that you're like, oh my gosh, look at how incredible this is. We have a workforce that wants to talk to us. They trust me to do something with this information because we know that we're kind of spicy in that feedback. We're not trying to hurt your feelings. We don't even think twice about you taking it personally, but I know a lot of you have told me that that's what happens. You're like, I'm so bad at my job. I'm like, oh, we're not even thinking about you, which sounds harsh. We're talking about our manager. If you really look at the answers, think about it. It's like daily life on the team, stuff that you would never know is going on. It's actually like a love language. If you've got a bunch of negative feedback, congratulations. You've got like a ton of hope that your workforce is totally turnaroundable. Okay. So the first reason you don't want your CEO to go with you into the negative feedback is because they're not emotionally capable. It's not a good idea. Unless your CEO somehow came up through through the path of HR and gets it and is like, yeah, this is the key to revenue. I'm super pumped. If you hear enough key phrases where they're like, I can't wait to see how we can do better as an organization. Like maybe, but also I would still caution you because this next point, like they will pick the wrong things for you to work on. You want to maintain control over the fact that this is your jurisdiction. It may be tempting to get the CEO to see again how bad it is. Like, see, I told you people are disengaged, but they'll pick out one or two things like, oh, I see recognition and people don't feel appreciated and they don't feel like there's a path to grow. So go do career mapping. Okay. This is what employees do not like is when you give us career mapping, but we still don't know what's expected of us at work. We're stuck on the bottom rung of the employee hierarchy of needs. It's why employee initiatives fail sometimes because, yeah, you asked us if we feel like we have a path to grow. The answer is no. But in order for us to even really be ready for or care about that, we need clear goals. We need the company to live its values because those are like a framework by which we make decisions on how to treat each other. We need things to make sense in a more basic survival way. And a lot of that has to do with manager training. And just because one or two people say they don't feel like they have a path to grow does not mean your company's mature enough for growth pathing. Growth pathing is a deep, difficult exercise. It's very time consuming. And depending on your level of maturity at the organization, again, do you have time for that? Do you know how to do that? And it's okay if those answers are no. Like I'll give you permission to let you off the hook to say the answer is probably no. But if you let the CEO in, they're going to be like, work on that. That's going to make a ton of impact. One or two people said they wanted it, or 20 people out of 2,000 said they wanted it. That doesn't mean it's the right thing to work on. You need to maintain control over what you're working on to make sure it's the right stuff. So the ideal situation is you send a survey, you tell the CEO, like you book time with them a week after it closes. When this survey closes, you take time yourself, or maybe you and the HR team, and you say, okay, what are the patterns? You map things to the bottom of the employee hierarchy of needs, and you start there and you come up with your best solutions. You put together a presentation for the CEO, which again, that may sound like a time suck. Go into ChatGPT and say, based on what people said and like the hierarchy of needs, what are the top 3 takeaways to make the biggest impact? And tell me slide by slide, give me like a couple slides for a deck I could talk to my executive and explain to them what we learned and what the path forward is so that I can ask for budget. And it will tell you like what to write on each slide and you can critique it. Like if it's not exactly the way you want it, it's not going to give you the actual presentation. It will tell you what to write on the slides, which is still a huge time saver. Say like, map this to data. Let me tell you our company goals. Help me help the CEO make sense of why I'm advocating for what I am against what our company goals are. Like tell me what to write on the slide, but here's the company goals. Here's where we're off track. And it will tell you. It will even tell you what to put the header on the slide. Say, put this in terms a CEO is really going to perk up to. Use the buzzwords and the terms and the language that an executive cares about, which is revenue, growth, productivity, da-da-da-da-da. But you're basically like choosing your own destiny here. And you want to just really make it easy for the CEO to be protected from the onslaught of all the feedback. Like even if they ask, can I see all the raw feedback? Say, tell me why you want to do that, because I don't think that's a good use of your time. And that's why you hired me. It's not that I don't want to show it to you, but like I went through it already and like, let me know how I can support you in any other part of the business. Like I have to imagine you're needed in a lot of other areas of the business. It's like reading bad tweets about yourself online. I know not all of you are a public figure, but I've just started hitting the mark where people leave nasty comments on my TikTok or on my old YouTube channel. You can't really read those. Like those are haters. You can't take that to heart and go home and like ruminate on that and think about it when you're falling asleep. Like that person forgot they even said it. So ask them like, what are you hoping to gain by that? I don't think that's the best use of your time. And that's why I'm here to support you through that so that you can like get a bunch of time back to focus on the business. I'm here to help give my recommendations based on my expertise, which is people-driven revenue. So yeah, be very cautious. If you have an over-anxious, over-eager CEO who's like, what's the negative feedback? Say, back it up, buttercup. This is why you hired me. And I'm here to help you go faster. I'm here to help make sure that you focus all your energy and all your strengths into growing the business. These were the takeaways. These were the patterns. And like, then you can even ask ChatGPT, like, what are the best suggestions you have for solving for some of this? And then you can go shop for tech and like whatever you need to do if you need to. We'll do an episode on how to properly shop for tech against negative employee feedback soon. But for now, today, the lesson is do not let your CEO go into the raw negative feedback before you've had a chance to. Really don't even let them see it at all. You can pull out all the patterns, put together a presentation, and like even tell them like, that's the tactical yucky stuff. Like like, I got it. Like, I don't want you to have to feel like you need to go in there, and you can tell them too. You want to have a really great relationship with your CEO, and that only comes from like radically candid, fierce conversations. I just called out 2 books. I highly recommend 2 books that will help you form deep connection, but also have healthy debate in the workplace, especially with someone who has more power than you. First of all, the first book is Fierce Conversations by Susan Scott. She's coming on the podcast in a month, and we're going to go deep on her book that super changed my life. Helps in your personal life too. And similar but different, there's a book called Radical Candor, and that's by, ironically, a woman named Kim Scott. So they have the same last name. They are not related. 2 very smart, incredible women wrote those books. But just make sure you maintain control of your negative survey feedback results, and that you are continuing to steer the ship toward people and revenue by protecting your very sensitive CEO, although they don't want anyone else to know that, protecting them from a trauma response that hurdles them into pushing even harder on revenue and growth in the way that pushes everybody away. So, we talk more about this in my community. We'd love to have you in there. There's a link to Engagement Academy in the show notes, and you can meet with me and everyone else once a week where we talk about this stuff and we troubleshoot as a group what's unfolding in everyone's organization. So make sure you join the group so that we can all get together and you can meet all your new best friends in roles just like yours. Next week, we're going to be talking about public speaking tips. And until then, I hope you have a great week. Remember that you're a director in this film that is your workplace. You're not an actor reacting to the chaos and the anarchy. Don't take the negative feedback personally. And I hope you all have a great rest of your week, and I'll be back next week. We're going to talk about some public speaking tips. I love you guys. I'll see you soon.